You've pulled up next to a big truck on the highway and noticed something that looks completely broken. A whole set of wheels lifted clean off the road, spinning slowly in the air, hovering just inches above the pavement while the truck rolls along perfectly fine on the rest of its tires. And you probably assumed something was wrong. A flat, a busted suspension, a spare tire it forgot to lower, or just lazy maintenance. Here's the thing, nothing is wrong. The driver raised those wheels on purpose from a switch inside the cab, and whether they're up or down at any given moment is a deliberate decision about weight, money, and the law. Those are called lift axles, and what they really mean is astonishing when you think about it. A truck can literally change how many wheels it's using, moment to moment, depending on what it's carrying. By the end of this, you'll understand why a truck would ever want fewer wheels on the road instead of more, why raising them at the wrong moment is illegal enough to have earned the nickname cheater axles, and why the whole system exists because of a law we've already talked about on this channel. So let's get into it. What are those extra wheels actually for? Why would a truck ever want to lift wheels off the ground? Why are some up while others are down? Why does the driver raise them when the truck is empty and drop them when it's loaded, instead of just leaving them down all the time? How do they even lift, with nobody getting out to touch them? And why do some truckers get fined for raising them at exactly the wrong second? Here's what everyone gets wrong. We assume every wheel on a vehicle is there to do the same job, all the time, permanently bolted on, always carrying its share. A lift axle breaks that rule completely. It's a part-time wheel, and to understand why a truck would ever want such a thing, you have to remember something from before. It is not a truck's total weight that matters to the road. It's the weight pressing down on each individual axle. The law caps how much any single axle is allowed to carry, because a few heavy axles is exactly what cracks pavement and cracks bridges. So a truck hauling a heavy load has a real problem. It might be under the total legal weight limit, but if it stacks all of that weight onto just 2 or 3 axles, it blows straight past the per axle limit. And the solution is genuinely elegant. Add more axles and spread the same weight thinner across all of them, so no single axle is ever overloaded. That is what a lift axle is for. It is a truck's way of growing more feet exactly when it needs them. So let's look at how it actually works. An auxiliary axle mounted in front of the truck's main drive wheels is called a pusher. One mounted behind them is called a tag. Both are non-powered, they simply roll, and their entire job is to carry a share of the load when things get heavy. Once you know to look, you'll spot them everywhere. Dump trucks, cement mixers, sand and gravel haulers, flatbeds, and heavy haul rigs. And here's the direct connection to something we covered before. The whole reason these axles exist is the Federal Bridge Formula, the law that ties a truck's legal weight to how many axles it has and how far apart they are, specifically to protect bridges and pavement from concentrated weight. In the states that enforce that formula hardest, lift axles aren't a luxury at all. They're a necessity, the only way to legally carry a heavy load. Drop the axle, spread the weight, stay legal. Which raises the obvious question. If more wheels means more legal weight, why would a driver ever raise them? Why not just leave them down forever? And this is the counterintuitive part. A wheel on the ground has real costs. Every extra tire touching the road wears down, scrubbing off rubber with every mile, especially in turns. Extra axles add rolling resistance, which burns more fuel, and that's pure waste on the long, empty drive back after a load is dropped. And a raised axle actually shortens the truck's effective wheelbase, which tightens its turning radius and makes it far more maneuverable in a cramped yard or job site. So the driver plays it dynamically. Axle down when the truck is loaded to stay legal and protect the road. Axle up when it's empty to save the tires, save fuel, and turn tighter. The truck is constantly reshaping itself to match its load. And it all happens from the driver's seat. Lift axles ride on AIR suspension, running off the very same compressed air system that operates the truck's brakes. To drop an axle, air inflates a set of rubber bags that push the tires firmly down onto the road, transferring part of the truck's weight onto them. To raise it, that air dumps out, and another set of bags or springs hauls the whole axle up into the air. The driver just flips a switch. There's an even cleverer version too. A dragged extra axle would scrub sideways and fight the truck every time it turned, so some lift axles are self-steering, mounted on casters that swivel to follow the truck's path. And because a caster wheel only works going forward, some of them automatically raise themselves the instant the driver shifts into reverse. But that same handy switch in the cab is also how some drivers break the law, which is exactly why these axles have a second, uglier nickname. Because a driver can raise a lift axle at any time, an unscrupulous one can raise it, or quietly bleed the air out of it, while running fully loaded, just to save wear on the tires or to dodge a per-axle toll. And the moment they do, all that weight that was being spread across the extra axle slams straight back down onto the drive axles, instantly overloading them. The exact thing the entire law was written to prevent. It hammers the pavement and pounds the bridges. And that is precisely why these are also known, bluntly, as cheater axles. It's also why the officers at a weigh station never just check a truck's total weight. They weigh each axle group separately, and a truck caught rolling with its lift axle cheated up gets written up on the spot. The technology itself is old, with lift systems for concrete mixers patented back in the early 1960s, born the very moment trucks got heavy enough that bridge protection laws forced them to either spread their weight or stay home. And once you understand all of that, the wheels in the air that you used to think were broken start telling you an entire story. Because now you'll see it everywhere and read it instantly. That empty dump truck flying down the highway with a set of wheels tucked up in the air, that's a driver who dropped his load and lifted an axle to save fuel and tires on the way back. The same truck a few hours later, loaded down with gravel, every single wheel planted firmly on the road. Axle down, weight spread, perfectly legal. You can literally read a truck's load just by looking at its wheels. Watch a big mixer crank a tight corner in a yard, and you might catch a rear axle popping up in the middle of the turn to shorten the truck and help it swing around. And it's the very same idea running through this whole channel. That oversized superload we talked about spreads its monstrous weight across dozens of axles for the exact same reason a dump truck drops a single lift axle. Keep the weight on each axle under the limit so the bridges survive. The weigh station exists to enforce that rule. The lift axle is just the everyday, adjustable version of the same law, playing out on the truck right next to you. It's the snowshoe principle all over again. More feet to spread the load when the ground demands it, fewer when it doesn't. Those wheels in the air aren't broken. They're a truck doing math in real time about exactly how many wheels the load and the law actually require. Of course, all this flexibility comes at a price. Every lift axle a fleet adds is more weight, more cost, more tires to buy, and more airbags and valves to maintain, plus precious frame space taken up on the truck. It is a genuine trade-off, paying for the extra axle and the complexity in exchange for the ability to legally haul more and protect the drive tires. And the rules make it maddening because how many axles a truck needs, and sometimes even which type, changes from state to state. A truck that is set up perfectly for one state's bridge law can be wrong the moment it crosses into the next. So fleets often build their trucks for the strictest state they run in and simply load them lighter where the limits are lower. The lift axle solves one problem by handing the driver another, a constant moving judgment call about weight, tire wear, and which state line is coming up next. And even this humble part-time wheel is getting smarter. Modern trucks increasingly manage their lift axles automatically, sensing the load and the speed and raising or lowering the axles on their own to keep the weight legal without the driver having to think about it, which quietly closes the door on the whole cheater trick. Self-steering lift axles keep improving, cutting down the tire scrub that used to make extra axles so expensive to run. And as loads get heavier and fuel gets more expensive, the ability to shed wheels the instant they stop earning their keep, then plant them the instant they're needed, only becomes more valuable. The truck that reshapes itself to its cargo is quietly becoming the standard. So the next time you pass a truck with a set of wheels floating just above the road, spinning in the air, you'll see it completely differently. They were never broken, and it was never a mistake. That's a lift axle, a part-time wheel the driver raises and lowers on purpose so the truck can grow more feet exactly when a heavy load and the bridge-protecting law demand them, and tuck them away the moment they'd only cost tires and fuel. You're not looking at a breakdown. You're looking at a truck that has quietly decided for right now it simply doesn't need those wheels. And that entire trailer behind it, 40 tons of steel and freight, is held to the truck by a locking pin roughly the size of your fist. How that one small connection carries all of that, and why it almost never fails, is stranger than you'd ever guess.